Thank you, Morton. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Summer. Thank you, Casey, all grown up and married now. And it is true that it's my job to torture the young. I'm a professional, and I'm a highly paid professional, and I fancy getting to be pretty good at it by now. But it's also true that it costs me $30 or $40 every day when I go to lunch because they're always raising money for something. And they always want you to buy a T-shirt. So if anybody would like a free T-shirt, send me your size. I do congratulate Morton. I've known Morton for 434 years now. And he's always done the same thing. He figured out something useful to do and long-term to do. We do something related, Morton and I. I try to teach young people what things mean. Hard to figure out what things mean. Just think for yourself. Anything you do, especially it's fun to do this when they're 19 years old. What do you do? What do you study? And if you ask 3 or 4 questions, why do you do that? It will always lead to them saying, this is a good thing to do. And they will always say that. There's my girl, Brianna, back there. She's busy torturing my current student, Zach, who just moons over her and is almost useless in class now. And she's, you can see her all the way over there in the back on that side. She's blushing red, and you can see it from here. And you see what that means? All of us, right? Why did we come here this morning? What do we do? Why do we do it? It's always because we think it's good. And so, of course, then the question you ask the young is, what is it for a thing to be good? How do you know what good is? What is freedom? What is right? The central question of Plato's Republic, what is justice? What is the right thing to do? Turns out we need to know that. Turns out our country is famous because, unlike any country ever founded in human history, it begins with a series of propositions about that thing. It says that there's a way to act, and it says it doesn't matter if you are the strongest man on earth, even the King of England, you must do right. And if you don't, then you will violate the laws of nature and of nature's God. Where would you look up those laws? Young need to know that. They don't learn it anymore. Indeed, it is the central idea. It is the reason that college campuses have turned into the trash that they so commonly are today. That we teach them that there isn't any answer to those questions. It's really just what you think. So the order in nature that you be civil with another person, and that if you are trying to find the truth, you teach yourself to make academic arguments that are serious. Those orders go away now. And now everyone can be silenced, you see, because it's a microaggression, which word didn't exist 12 months ago, right? I was asking Aristotle class where Zach, the useless boy, is. You know, we started class the other day, and somebody said, Dr. Arnn, have you ever been accused of a microaggression? And I said, well, you know, micro is not my style. I said, it's not. And you see what it means that they asked me that question? And you see what it means when they laughed, when I answered it? And what that means is we're friends, right? We love each other. The word college means partnership. It is the place where one learns what things mean. Then, when he's learned them, when they get to be seniors, juniors sometimes, then they're ready for Morton. Because what do they long for then after that? They long, because, see, it isn't any use teaching them skills, right, until they know something about what they should do. But then they long for those skills, and they just soak them up. And so we've actually had Did you notice, by the way, how Morton, I've known, as I say, 453 years I've known Morton. And he's always got numbers, right? And, you know, Hillsdale College, I'm proud to announce, has sent 7,842 students to the Leadership Institute this year. I can make up numbers quicker than Morton can. Okay. So I've never been here before, but I have admired this forever and ever, and I'm proud to be here. And thank you, Morton. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you one thing. I don't have long to talk, and then I guess we're going to have Q&A, or we'll do whatever you want. I'm just here to obey today. I'm going to tell you something about Winston Churchill, because I just wrote a book about him, and my mind's full of him right now. We could talk about Aristotle, but maybe we're not ready for that over breakfast. Here's a proposition. Winston Churchill, I believe that the three greatest statesmen in all of history are, they were all Democrats. That is to say, they all performed in representative governments and believed in that. It's odd, right? Because human history is very old. And, yeah, small d, that man said. When I say Democrat, I mean believe that the people should be in charge of the government over them, right? In other words, you have a right to consent to the government over you because no man or woman may rule any other man or woman as any human being is entitled to rule a horse. You see, because we're all human together, right? And that means we can't do anything to each other unless we agree. The key to running a college, because when they show up, they're high school kids at the moment of growing up. And now is the time in their life when they get to begin to exercise volition over fundamental things. And so the first rule of dealing with them is you can't rule them by rules. Only goals will work. And they have to adopt the goals before they come. So the reason how we recruit at Hillsdale College, the reason we're successful, we always tell them, look, you don't want to do this. This is hell. Why would you come here? It's cold up here. And it's a little boring town, and we've had, well, I'm ashamed of myself to say it, last term, the valedictorian of the senior class had a 4-point. And he's the 6th in 25 years. And we got him clerking on the Supreme Court from Hillsdale College, right? They're smart. But we don't like grade inflation at our place. And we tell them, don't do it. It's a mistake. Also, the girls and the boys don't sleep together in the same dorm. You want that? So if they show up, they have volunteered. Winston Churchill, when I was hired to be the president of the college, which is a very weird job to ever undertake, they said, how did you understand about management? And I said, well, a lot of reasons. Some of them don't count. Peter Drucker, if you know who that is, he was my landlord. So I knew him really well. I never studied with him. But Winston Churchill said, the key to all human relations, it is at once the glory and the safeguard of mankind that it is easy to lead and hard to drive. The reason freedom will win, finally, is that fact in human nature. So now, what's my one point about Winston Churchill? Of these three greatest statesmen in human history, and they are George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill, Winston Churchill is the only one to live in our time. And what I mean by our time, I'm going to use his definition. We live in the age of the runaway success of modern science. We're tweeting this out, right? Morton can run this place, and people can come here from anywhere in the world, and they do. And 30 years ago, they couldn't have done that. Flying was for the rich. This is broadcast, right? God knows how many people. Well, actually, Morton knows exactly how many people are going to watch it. And he knows all the ones that are going to watch it more than once, right? But that couldn't have happened before. And Churchill, in 1898, is when he saw this. He was on a battlefield. He understood that was in equal measure good news and bad news. Why is it bad news? Churchill watched 25,000 British soldiers fight 45 or 50,000, I think it was. Dervish, Churchill was in a war against what was probably the first Islamic regime in the Sudan in 1898. And he watched a cavalry charge by these dervishes, greatly outnumbering the British. And they charged across open country for a mile, and they were devastated, decimated. Machine guns, artillery. And the one who got the farthest got within 150 yards of the British line. And that means a football field and a half away. He still couldn't see them very well. And they killed 5,000 of them. And he looked at that and he said, wow, look what's possible. This city where we are, it could be blown up in 5 minutes. And it might be. We live in that time, right? When people are fighting with clubs, there's only so much damage an evil one can do. Even a group of evil ones. Do you think we'd be afraid of anything going on in Iraq or Iran right now? Or Syria? Except for the power of modern weapons? Because you can, first of all, think what it means that a society can put the mass of a modern airliner up in the air and get it moving really fast and then knock down a building with it. And a few guys with box cutters, right? They killed 3,000 people. Probably cost $150,000, the whole project. Might have killed a lot more. Churchill saw that. About war, he said, mankind has never been in this situation before. Without improving appreciably in virtue or enjoying wiser guidance, he has got into his hands at last the means of his own destruction. Death stands waiting at attention, silent and expected, waiting for a single word from the frail being so long his servant, now for once his master. Did you know that the very great, warlike, conquering Winston Churchill was afraid of war all his life? It's the reason he was so good at fighting it. Tried to avoid it all the time. And I'll tell you, because I don't have long, that the solution to this problem of war is simple. Strategy. Avoid it. Make friends. Deploy overwhelming force if you got to fight it, win it fast. States of continuous war, like we live in now, are corrosive of democratic freedoms. That's war. The flip side is peace. What happened in the lifetime of Winston Churchill? I want you all young, I want you to understand, because you have to learn about your time by learning about other times. Then you'll understand something about time, right, which is an abstract. Our time has seen the worst and most comprehensive tyrannies in human history. Churchill watched the development of Nazi Germany and Bolshevik Russia, which he said reduced people to the level of insects. And what makes that possible, see? Because there's evil tyrannies in the ancient world, but just like the evil warlike nations in the ancient world, there's a limit on what they can do. But now, everything can be tracked. And the society, by the way, produces so much wealth that we can make war for longer and a higher percentage of the time than we used to do. But also, did you know in the Stasi, according to that film Bill Buckley said at the end of his life is the best film he ever saw, called The Lives of Others? It's about the East German Stasi. 1 person in 6 in East Germany was a member of the secret police. And so, in the ancient world, you couldn't do that. People would starve to death. So what that means is, just like in war, so in peace, now the problem is a problem of the control of power. Get used to it. These problems that are going on that you see everywhere, they are not going to go away. They can only be coped with. And I said that in defense, in national security affairs, Churchill's answer is strategy. And you should read him on that because, wow. What's his answer in peace? And the answer is, in modern times, the art of delegating and controlling power has been taken to its most advanced state in all of human history. And in particular, taken to its most advanced state in the United States of America. And that art is called constitutionalism. This lawlessness, this multiplication of rules so that they ever change and no one can read them except the experts, which is a license to steal. It's what Morton was talking about at the beginning about the Internal Revenue Service. If the code is so complicated that only an expert can know what it says, then it can mean whatever the powerful person implementing it thinks it means on any given day. So come to find out then, what Churchill thought, Churchill said, look what's going to happen, by the way. In the year that Brave New World was published, 1931, and although Churchill, we know because of a letter he wrote, his wife didn't read that book until 1958. In 1931, he wrote an essay and he said, it's going to get possible to make people in laboratories. And if we can make them better, then we could also make them worse. And then they could work for us and be happy. In April of this year, 2 Nobel Prize-winning biologists said we ought to have a moratorium on changing the germline DNA. Because if we do that, ever after, and we can eliminate birth defects if we do that, but we will turn ourselves into artifacts, that is to say, one form of a manufactured item. Penny and I have 4 children, and we made them. But they're also gifts from God because they're a surprise to us when they come. I mean, God, they're grown up now, and we were on the phone with one of them last night for 3 hours. What's that about, right? They're our children. They own us. And they always will. You see? So what I say is, you young ones, you should study 3 things. You should study times so that you can understand this one. And you should study strategy so you can figure out how to win these wars and keep our freedom at the same time. And you should study constitutionalism, because with the absence of that, you're going to lose your right to study at all. Thanks.